All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're tackling a massive question that every single business faces. Is bigger always better? Now, you might think the answer is obvious, but it's not a simple yes or no. The real answer? Well, it's kind of hidden in the data, in a concept called long-run costs, which is what helps a company figure out its absolute perfect size. I mean, think about it. Every founder, every CEO, they all have to ask this. Do we build another factory? Do we hire 100 more people? Should we expand into a new country? The key to answering this isn't about what you can do tomorrow, it's about what you can plan for the long haul. So to figure this out, we first have to step into this theoretical world. It's kind of like a planner's paradise, a place where absolutely nothing is set in stone. And economists, they have a name for this. They call it the long run. So in the long run, there are no fixed leases, no factory sizes you can't change, no permanent staff you're stuck with. It's really just a strategic time frame where you could, in theory, just rebuild your entire company from the ground up. Every single cost is on the table, totally and completely flexible. Here's an easy way to think about it. The short run, well, that's like deciding what to cook for dinner tonight using only the stuff you've already got in your fridge. But the long run, oh, that's when you get to design and build your dream kitchen from scratch. You pick every appliance, every cabinet, every single inch of counter space. See the difference? Okay, so with all this freedom to plan, where do we even begin? Well, you start by figuring out the absolute rock-bottom cheapest way to produce, well, anything at all. And that brings us to something called the long-run total cost, or LTC for short. Just imagine you could build the perfect company for any level of output. The LTC is the absolute minimum it would cost to make a specific number of things. Doesn't matter if it's one widget or 1 million widgets. It's the theoretical floor for your expenses. So let's look at some numbers from our source material. For this hypothetical company, you can see the minimum total cost to produce different amounts. And, it makes sense. As output goes up from 1 to 6, the total cost goes up too. But this is just our starting point. The real story is buried a layer deeper. Right? Because that total cost number, it doesn't tell us the whole story. Not even close. To find that magic number, that perfect scale, we need to break this down into two much more revealing metrics. So first up is the long-run average cost, or LAC. This is a super simple but really powerful number. It gives us our first real look at efficiency. As you can see from the formula, you just take your total cost and divide it by how many units you made. It tells you, on average, what the price tag is for making each individual item. And then there's its partner, the long-run marginal cost, or LMC. Now, this one is all about making decisions on the fly. It looks at the change in cost compared to the change in output. This helps us answer that crucial question for any growing business. Okay, if we're already making 4 of these, how much extra is it going to cost us to make just 1 more? This is the number that tells you whether to scale up or just hold steady. So let's plug those formulas into our data and see what happens. And wow, a really fascinating pattern starts to show up. Check out that average cost column. It starts at 80, drops to 60, hits a low of 45, and then it starts to creep back up. And the marginal cost does something similar. This is not random, folks. This is the company's efficiency curve revealing itself. And this pattern, it's not just a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet. It's a story. It's a story about efficiency, about scale, and about finding that perfect sweet spot. It's the story of the U-curve. Just look at that average cost column again. The cost per unit doesn't just keep falling and falling forever. No, it drops to a minimum and then, and this is the critical part, it starts to rise again. That reversal, that's the whole key to understanding a business's perfect size. And this number right here, 45, for this particular business, this is the holy grail. It represents the absolute lowest possible average cost for each unit they produce. This is the point of maximum efficiency. It's the very bottom of that U. So this U-shape perfectly illustrates the journey of a growing company, right? At first, getting bigger is better. You get more efficient, you hit a peak, but then, if you're not careful, growing even more can actually make you less efficient. This journey really has 3 parts. First, as the company grows, it gets what we call economies of scale. It gets better at what it does, it buys materials in bulk, and the cost per item falls. Then it hits that sweet spot, the minimum average cost. But If it keeps growing past that point, something called diseconomies of scale can kick in. Communication gets messy, management gets bloated, and the cost per unit actually starts to go back up. So here's the bottom line. By analyzing these U-shaped curves, a business can figure out, almost scientifically, its most efficient size. It can find that perfect scale of production where it can offer its product to the market at the lowest possible average cost. And that, well, that's strategic planning at its absolute best. Which kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We're always told to grow, expand, scale, scale, scale at all costs. But as the numbers clearly show, the most successful companies aren't always the biggest. They're the ones that are the right size. So for any company, is bigger always better? The U-curve suggests the answer is a clear and resounding no.